What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us today for another taping of the Inside Brooklyn podcast. I'm Kristen Nye. I'm joined here today with my wonderful co-host, Nigel Roberts. Nigel, thanks for being with us.
Great being here.
Jamie won't be here today. She will be back next week, though. Miss you, Jamie. Today we have a great guest. This man does it all. He's a music critic and writer. He's also developed a cultural platform, Team Mighty Healthy, that creates content focused around health and culture, specifically for the Black and Brown community. So, Kavito, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
I'm so excited to delve in. Sounds like you have a lot going on, so why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? You're from Bed-Stuy, right?
Sure, yes, I'm definitely from Bed-Stuy. Originally from Akron, Ohio, though. But
Akron! My family's from Cleveland.
Okay.
I know all about
Northeastern
the CLE,
yeah.
Yeah.
You're from New York as well?
New York, yes.
Okay. So I've been living here for almost 20 years now,
Okay.
straight in that same area. Dave Chappelle's Block Party was like in my backyard back in the day.
Oh, wow!
I have written for a lot of publications over the past 10 years, from Complex to Ebony to Essence, Black Enterprise, and now I've came into my own after receiving a new kidney 2 years this year.
Congrats, by the way, on your recovery.
Yeah, thank you.
That's huge.
Where I wanted to take the experiences that I learned while being in the hospital and all the things that I saw people of color going through, as well as practitioners of color, and what they went through, and trying to like help people out and getting pushback from it, and funneled it into a content service called Mighty Healthy.
Okay, and there's a lot going on there, right? Social media, you have a newsletter.
Correct. So it starts off with the weekly newsletter.
Okay.
That's every week. It's called Kavito Says.
Okay.
It profiles the different artists that I want people to learn about who are coming up. No less than 5 years of industry experience. So you'll see, like, for instance, if the Grammys were last night and everybody was talking about Lizzo, I would have talked about Lizzo maybe 4 years before.
Everyone's always talking about Lizzo, let's be honest.
Yeah, I get the inside track.
Yeah, gotcha.
The new stars of the future who are on the rise, I profile them, as well as talk about new songs that are coming out that people haven't heard yet, but they'll be hearing in the future. And I also deliver health news that people should know if they didn't know. So most recently, they discovered that 98.6, the temperature degrees for when you have your temperature taken.
Yeah, your natural temperature for your body.
Is no longer natural.
Mm.
It's actually because the climate change has gone up that our temperatures have also gone up.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
The literal climate of our bodies is changing.
Yeah.
There you go. See, Team Mighty Healthy already blowing our minds.
Right. And so after that comes a podcast I'm actually developing, which is the same application as the newsletter, but in audio form, where we bring in people who are either a part of the healthcare industry or have healthcare issues that have affected them, and we come to discuss it, while we also have a weekly sort of playlist that serves as a soundtrack for that podcast. That's still in development. It used to be called Kavito Plays, and so reworking that into the whole organization of what I want it to be. And then lastly, I'm developing a TV pilot called Mighty Healthy, and it's similar to, if you remember, The Daily Show or last week with John Oliver, where we take that same premise and then use comedy to explore healthcare issues that affect the Black and Brown community.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of like a more relevant topic than healthcare, especially for underserved communities. You know, it's a big issue in our country. So I would love to hear more, if you don't mind, kind of about your journey from where you started to what led you to be so passionate about health and wellness.
Sure. So I discovered later on in life, when my kidney actually failed in 2012, that my parents knew about this disease that I have, which is really long way to say medical debt, but it's shorthand to be FSGS. It's a kidney disease that stops the filters of your kidneys from working and eventually will shut down.
Wow.
And so if you know how important the kidney is, filters shutting down is not really healthy. So I found out that my parents knew way when I was young, like around 8. And I found this out after I was in the hospital being prepped for surgery. And the surgery took place and I was put on what's called peritoneal dialysis. It's different from hemodialysis, which is filtering your blood and helping you that way. Mine was where they put a catheter in your stomach and you were tied up to a machine, and it was like a glucose fluid that would.
And how often did you have to do this?
So the difference between hemo is like 3 days a week for maybe 3 to 4 hours, depending on your regimen.
Oh my gosh.
Mine was 9 hours.
It's like a part-time job.
Well then, yeah. Mine was full-time.
Oh my gosh.
How long was the treatments?
9 hours every day.
For how long?
Until you got new kidneys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So similar to the dialysis prep for hemo, where you're on it until you get a new kidney, or whether it be a living donor or through being on the kidney list. I was in that same strait where I would have to do this for 9 hours every day until someone was able to either donate their kidney to me or I was on the list. And so I went through those stages of having that health issue, and I still continue to work as a journalist. Like I said before, I was working at Complex and Black Enterprise, and I would see that the situation that I was in would create these unique conversations. So if I couldn't go out with my coworkers to go drink because I had to go back home to do my regimen, it would create a bit of tension, like we don't know how cool he is, or some people didn't even believe that I was even on dialysis because the catheter would be here, but you would never see it. And so people would think that I'm just being antisocial or not wanting to be a part of the community.
I can imagine that would really shift your perspective on like your daily life and how you spend your time, because that's just, sounds like that was your life.
It was a big chunk of my time, but like I had a real close circle of friends who knew what I was going through, and it wouldn't really change how I would interact with them. Like we would still go out, go to movies and stuff like that. And I can't say I was always perfect. Like I would, miss a few days here, or like be frustrated with the process of having to do it and say, I'm just gonna act like a regular person, quote unquote. But it didn't affect me personally in how I behaved and how I felt. It affected me professionally in terms of my bosses sometimes not wanting to incur what the health insurance would be if I was to be employed by them. So they would say, we'll put you on a permanent contract so we don't have to pay for having to take care of you. The last job that I had actually was letting me work 7 days a week. I was the only person at that job working Monday through Sunday while still doing dialysis. And then once I got my transplant, let me go.
Wow. So you, like you said, you saw firsthand some of the issues in terms of social treatment as well as medical as you went through this process. Is that kind of what sparked this movement for you? Like how did that happen?
So the one that I shared with friends and family is an experience where I was in ER, and at the time I was in ER a lot because I would get an obstruction of the intestines. And so if you've ever been like constipated or had like anybody who had kidney stones, it's like a painful process. So I would be in the ER, and I guess shout out to Mount Sinai and Brooklyn Hospital for doing due diligence, but they're not the best. Healthcare in this country is already up and down scale, but I was in ER, and this woman next to me had been in ER in the same position for 5 days. And I was noticing that the doctors and the RNs were just passing her by, and she was right.
Like she was laying in the same position?
Meaning like she was in the bed and no one was attending to her. She was in pain and needed pain medicine, some sort of conversation to get treatment, move forward. And there was nobody who was paying attention to her.
It's like, where's the care in healthcare?
Right. It wasn't there. It was more so people ignoring her. And you could tell she was from sort of the same neighborhoods that I used to live in back in Akron. So, you're easy to skip over that person to go to somebody else who might have full health care and benefits. And so she gets frustrated and she says, can you curse on this podcast?
We'll just see what happens. Yeah.
So she said, "Fuck this, I'm out," and she puts her regular clothes on and checks into a hospital that the care is not going to be good there. And to see that, and we talked while it was going on. I was trying to help flag people down for her, and they dismissed her. They dismissed her to a point to where she had to go somewhere where she knows she might not get the same care that she would get here, but would at least get more attention.
Just to try.
Just to try and feel better. And I took that as a lesson of, you know, just how institutionalized biases are in the healthcare industry.
Absolutely. So in light of all this, what topics are you touching on to kind of bring awareness, change the conversation, address the horrific treatment that seems fairly standard in a lot of these medical care facilities, and certainly not all, but, you know, from what you've seen, what are you doing to kind of change the narrative?
Because I get the chance to write for publications, I'm afforded a voice to be able to slide content in some certain places. So for Vibe, I wrote a piece about my kidney journey and talked about sort of the practices of billing. You know, how you go in with your employee health insurance, you might need Medicare or Medicaid also as a supplement, and then the billing process that comes afterwards when you have surgery or even when you're in ER. And then compare that to experiences outside the country. And so a piece that I wrote was taking those two things based upon medical practices here, being taken care of here, versus when I was unfortunately in the hospital in Ghana. And so you would think that in Africa they have not as proficient sort of caregiver, caretaker equipment and tendencies there, because just of stereotypes what people say, versus in the States where, you know, you have all the equipment and all the resources.
We're the best.
Right. And I broke down like just the attentiveness, the probability of care between doctors and then the billing. And so in the example that I did for the piece, I was in ER for less than 24 hours. In Ghana, I was in ER, their version of ER, for 48. The level of care was somewhat better here than in Ghana. The doctors came when I needed them to, versus Ghana where, you know, you had to flag somebody down. The cost between the two was almost 10 times the difference.
Wow.
I almost spent $1,000 for almost less than 24 hours here, versus here where I left paying $110.
Versus Ghana. So a lot of your work is really bringing awareness and shedding light on some of these issues in the community. What type of content do you develop beyond the editorial pieces? Because I know you have social media, right? That's huge for you.
Yeah. So we do this thing called When Keeping It Real at the Hospital Goes Wrong. We ask people to tell stories of when they were in the hospital or when they knew somebody who was in the hospital, and when, similar to the Dave Chappelle skit in Chappelle Show, when did you do something that you expected to go one way and it went left? And so people would come in with their stories. We also partner with Black Men Feel, which is a Black men's social page where they talk about how you feel and work out issues of masculinity. And we do one.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like that's not there yet, you know, in society.
Here, you know, Gentleman's Factory, right?
Yeah.
There's a beautiful place here.
Steps are being taken for sure.
Yeah. And I guess outside of that socially, there's the newsletter again that shares news, which is called I Ain't Know That. So it's like what I said earlier about the temperature degrees, or for instance, there's a Black man who started his own ramen noodle company because he saw that in prison he was able to use this as a form of currency, and then develop that into a business where, you know, was able to serve his community where they weren't able to get certain access to foods that were, you know, food deserts and whatnot. And then lastly, we do events. And so at Ode to Babel and Good Life in Brooklyn, we do this weekly party series called Not Another 90s Party, where it's centered around R&B. And in the midst of that, we have people who are well knowledgeable about healthcare come in and talk, or be able to have a booth there to pass out information to people.
When is the next party?
Next party is going to be pre-Valentine's Day. We're calling it a pre-Valentine's Day happy hour. Excuse me, at Good Life. So February 13th, and then the March one is supposed to be at Chelsea Music Hall. So,
Okay.
Can we back up just a little bit? You talked earlier about some of the bias, right? That you've seen in the healthcare system. I mean, that stuff is well documented. You could look at the infant mortality rates and other things. That's well documented. Do you feel frustrated that even though you and other people are protesting that nothing is being done, and what can be done? What can be done? Is this just something that's going to exist forever?
You know, I would hope and believe that it doesn't last forever. Actually, there was a story, to your point, where it was talking about how Black women are 3 times more likely to die just from trying to give birth or complications of, you know, having to maintain their pregnancies versus white women who are less likely. But in protesting that, I feel like we're raising awareness in terms of what needs to be done. You know, that's a government issue, and trying to get that to change in this climate is going to be really hard. I know the guy who shall not be named is already pulling back stuff that Obama put forth that we feel helped a lot in our community.
Absolutely.
But I think raising awareness at this point is the frontline step versus marching into the hospitals and being like, you need to put more Black people as doctors here, or you need to be more helpful in the RNs and giving them the support that they need, who are all mostly people of color who are here helping us out to be able to better provide care on the ground while the doctors are in the rooms doing what they're trying to do.
So in light of obviously the complexities of our current political climate and this momentum you've created, what, you know, speaking to the Black and brown community, what's a starting point? You know, like, are there certain resources? Are there some basic pieces of information that you could share with us now, just kind of as a basic start here?
Yeah, there's Black Health Matters. There's they're a really great resource. They also have like a directory of people who are on the ground in different places in the country where you want to ask them questions about finding a better practitioner or someone who might be in your neighborhood who fits what your needs are. There's also therapy for Black girls.
Health Matters?
Black Health Matters.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also therapy for Black girls, which is a large directory of therapists that people go through when they need help for mental health issues.
Okay.
Black Healthcare 911 is a service that is trying to create an app, which is similar to what Snapchat just did, where they're putting a button just in case of emergencies. So this is to try and notify, fire, health, police in a way that circumvents having to call 911, because some people don't really trust 911 to get the call through. Those are 3.
Okay. And in your daily life, what is your health and wellness? What does that look like now? I mean, you speak about this a lot for the community, but what have you found works for you just in terms of daily maintenance, like diet or exercise, that maybe you can share?
Let me ask you guys this question.
Okay.
So when you guys seem pretty fit, what are certain things that you find that you're able to do to keep your health intact that you wish other people were able to do who might not be able to have the same resources?
Go ahead.
Well, I have pretty much a daily routine. I have an exercise bike at home. I'm able to hop on that. I know a lot of people can't afford to go to the gym, and a lot of times it's inconvenient, when you work hours and hours and hours a day. So it's worth investing, I think, in something like that, where you could utilize the time that you have available to do it, and just be able to turn it into routine, because I feel a lot of health and wellness is about routine, getting into a rhythm, a daily rhythm of eating and exercising and
build a routine or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Consistency, even if it's small, but with limited resources, which I've been there. I'm not claiming to have the same struggles that people of color do by any means, but I've had to choose between paying bills and skip meals. Like I've been there, and when you're at that level of stress, you're not going to join a fancy gym. or make a matcha smoothie, right? But for me, simple things like trying to get consistent sleep if I can, drinking lemon water, lemon detoxes your body, taking the stairs, just kind of, I think you look at this big change and you say, oh, I'm just going to diet and lose 100 pounds. And really it's these micro decisions we make throughout the day that have helped me support my health, even in times where maybe I didn't have quite the same resources. You can say eat fruits and veggies. People don't like to do that as much, but the water is the easiest one.
I agree with you on that. And the stairs. I live in a building now.
We're in New York. They're everywhere.
Yeah. My building that I live in now is the first I've ever had an elevator in it, and I don't take it. I only take it if I'm coming in with packages or something like that, or if it's really cold and I need to get somewhere fast.
Do you walk your dog up and down the stairs? You said you have a dog, right?
Yeah. My dog doesn't like going down the stairs, but going up it's just like I just take it off the leash and let it run up the stairs.
Yeah.
At this point, my dog knows what floor we're on. The first time when we brought the dog home, it ran all the way up to the 8th floor and had to wait for it to come back down because you just chase it and think it's the game.
That's your exercise right there.
Exercise for you.
And that's one of my favorite exercises, doing the stairs, like jumping squats or something like that. We have a gym in our building, and so that's a luxury that I never had before, and so I utilize that. Elastic bands are kind of my thing.
Resistance, movements.
Make sure the flexibility stays.
Yeah.
Diet has been like day and night for me. So when I was on dialysis, I was on a very restricted diet. Couldn't really do too many meats. It was mostly fish and vegetables. I couldn't do certain fruits. I couldn't do any like Caribbean fruits or anything like that. Not even bananas or anything like that, because the potassium was...
It blocks certain...
Well, it would be detrimental. I had to keep everything at a certain level.
Gotcha.
And so if the potassium got too high, calcium would get low, and then my bones would start to hurt.
So, Kavito, we can find all of this information. Do we follow the hashtag? Do you have a specific Instagram? Like, obviously you're a powerful voice in the community and really activating change and awareness. Where can we find you?
Let's see. The mainstay place would be my Seed and Spark.
That's right. You have a crowdfunding campaign, right, for your late night show.
Yes. So Seed and Spark is searchable through Kavito Says or Mighty Healthy.
Kavito Says.
Yes.
Okay.
And then if for any reason why people just love their social media, then I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
That's at Kavito Clark, and then the link there has everything listed there.
Okay, at Kavito Clark.
That's correct.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for your work, for your efforts, and for sharing your story. I think it's definitely relevant, and your struggle wasn't in vain, and I hope you know that. Thank you for pushing through, having a strong spirit, and sharing your experiences with the community to create something bigger than yourself. I commend you for that.
Thank you guys.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We will see you next time. Catch you then.